Imagine being born into the shadow of a giant. Your father is Suleiman the Magnificent, the longest reigning sultan in Ottoman history. Your mother is Hürrem, the woman who reshaped the empire. Your siblings include warriors, poets, and princes admired by the army and adored by the public. And then there's you, Selim. A prince whispered about, underestimated, and destined for a throne that many believed he should never touch. But history didn't ask for permission. When the empire needed a new ruler, Selim, the most unlikely heir, became the man who inherited a legend. This is his story, from birth to his final breath. Dramatic, controversial, and full of palace tension. Just like Magnificent Century portrayed, but with the historical truth behind it. Birth, 1524, Constantinople. Prince Selim entered the world at the height of Ottoman power. The empire stretched across 3 continents, and his father, Suleiman, was already a symbol of absolute authority. In Magnificent Century, Selim's birth appears during the peak of Hürrem's rise, a moment of celebration wrapped in the scent of victory and palace politics. But historically, Selim's early years were more fragile. He was not the strongest of Hürrem's sons. He grew up surrounded by his brothers, Mehmet, Bayezid, and Cihangir. And around him, the tension of the Hürrem versus Mahidevran era shaped his childhood. Selim's character formed in a palace filled with whispers. Which prince will survive? Who will rule after Suleiman? Can the son least loved by soldiers truly become a future sultan? The answer would shock everyone. Growing up in Topkapı Palace meant one thing. You were always compared to Suleiman, a poet, warrior, statesman, a conqueror. Selim was quiet, more inclined toward feasts than battles, a lover of wine, art, and poetry, soft-spoken, often overshadowed by his brothers. In the series, he is portrayed as temperamental and insecure. Historically, Selim was calmer, more private, but undeniably less militaristic. He was raised by Hürrem's circle, educated in literature, law, and music. Not unfit, just different. But being different in the Ottoman palace was dangerous. Like every Ottoman prince, Selim was sent to govern a province. This was both training and a test of survival. He served in Manisa, Konya, and Kütahya. These postings were crucial. They shaped how the palace and the empire saw him. Selim and Bayezid rivalry began here. Bayezid was brave, charismatic, loved by soldiers, a favorite among governors and local leaders. The rivalry grew, quietly at first, but soon it would become deadly. Behind every Ottoman succession story stands a mother. For Selim, that mother was Hürrem Sultan, one of the most powerful women in world history. She understood something crucial. The throne wasn't given to the strongest. It went to the one with the best alliances. Hürrem strategically strengthened Selim's political network, earned Suleiman's favor for him, protected Selim from the Janissaries' dislike, and prevented Bayezid from gaining too much power. In Magnificent Century, Hürrem's last years show Selim as her chosen heir. Historically, this is true. Selim would never have become sultan without her influence. But Hürrem's death in 1558 changed everything. Without his mother, Selim was suddenly exposed, and Bayezid was ready. After Hürrem's death, the rivalry exploded. Bayezid made the first mistake. He defied Suleiman, gathered troops, and accused Selim of plotting against him. But Selim was patient. He waited, watched, and built alliances. He earlier earned support from Grand Vizier Rustem Pasha and later influential viziers and governors. The turning point was when Bayezid rebelled, expecting the army to support him. They didn't. Suleiman declared him a traitor. Selim was ordered to bring him down. The brothers clashed. Selim's forces won. Bayezid fled to Persia with his sons. But Selim made one final move, the move of a future sultan. He negotiated with the Persian Shah to hand Bayezid over. The result was brutal. Bayezid and his sons were executed in 1561. Selim had won. But the price was unimaginable. Even in victory, he looked broken. After Bayezid's death, Selim was the only living heir, but Selim's spirit was deeply affected. He felt guilt, withdrew from politics, and avoided military campaigns. He turned toward poetry, wine, and isolation. In the series, Selim appears overwhelmed by fear of failure. Historically, he struggled with anxiety, especially after the executions. The truth was, after decades of wars, the empire needed a different kind of ruler, one who could maintain stability, not chase conquest. Selim was exactly that. From the moment she entered the harem, the palace whispered her name like a riddle, Nurbanu. Selim saw her before he realized he needed her. Where others looked at Selim and saw weakness, she saw opportunity. Their connection didn't begin like a fairy tale. It began with tension, but she was unlike any other consort. She didn't pour wine for Selim. She poured ideas. Together, they learned how to navigate the storm. They were two unlikely forces in the palace, and yet, together, they created a future that would outlive them both. When Suleiman died in 1566 during the campaign, the empire held its breath. Could Selim truly lead? The transition was smoother than expected. The army accepted him. The viziers supported him. The palace opened its doors to him. Selim became the 11th ruler of the Ottoman Empire. He inherited a massive army, the richest treasury in Ottoman history, a global prestige, and system so strong it could function even under a weaker sultan. But the real test had just begun. Selim wasn't a warrior, but he was not the drunkard caricature historians made him either. His reign was defined by delegation. He trusted grand viziers and admirals to execute policy. Cultural patronage. Selim supported arts, architecture, and Islamic scholarship. Stability. The empire didn't collapse. It actually expanded. Major events: conquest of Cyprus, 1571, Battle of Lepanto, a naval defeat but quickly recovered. Architect Sinan's masterpieces, including the Selimiye Mosque. Selim's greatest strength? Understanding the power of delegation. He didn't pretend to be Suleiman. He ruled like Selim. And for 8 years, the empire remained strong. Selim's death has an almost legendary story. According to tradition, he slipped in the palace baths after drinking wine and hit his head, leading to complications that ended his life in 1574. Other sources suggest a stroke, liver problems, and general health decline. Whatever the cause, Selim died at 50, leaving the throne to his son, Murad III. His death marked the end of the direct rule of Suleiman's generation, the last link to the empire's golden age. He is often labeled the drunkard, the weak sultan, the unworthy heir. But this view is too simple. Selim ruled during one of the most stable eras of Ottoman history. He maintained the empire rather than destroying it. He kept peace at home, prevented internal rebellions, and allowed the administrative system to flourish. And most importantly, he survived the throne. In a world where most princes died before they could even dream of ruling, Selim did the impossible. He inherited a legend and managed not to be crushed by it. His legacy lives on not in battles, but in architecture, culture, political balance, and the continuation of Suleiman's dynasty.